Hello class, this is a review of material that's going to be on our second test for this class, Intermediate Accounting. And so there's some problems here, and I want to show you how you might want to think them through and make them work. So starting with the problem number one, has to do with revenue recognition. As you recall, that was our first topic of this kind of module after our last test. So we're taking this arrangement where we're selling mixers with a warranty for $50, and we need to apply the revenue recognition model, the 5 steps. First of all, is there a contract? And the answer is, it looks like there is a contract between a buyer and seller. That's usually pretty straightforward. Second, all right, what are the performance obligations? So, if you look at this, the thing that we have warranty and the mixer. And the fact that we sell the mixer with no warranty would probably indicate that they're two separate performance obligations, the mixer and the warranty. All right, so 2 performance obligations. Then we look at the value of those that we're going to receive for the mixers. Now, in this case, it's $50 times 100 mixers. All right. Now, the problem is there is also this agreement that provides for volume discounts. Whenever there's variable compensation, or the amount that was paid, it could be different, some form of discount, it could be for volume, it could be for early payment, any of those types of things, we must consider it in the amount that is going to be transferred. So in this case, this is what we kind of determined, that the possibility that they will buy less than 100 and get 0 discount is 40%. That they'll buy 1,000 to 2,000 and get a 5% discount is 40%. And 2,000 or more and get a 10% discount is only 20%. So the discount applies to all, it's retroactive, so if you reach the level of 2,000, you'll get a refund of the earlier purchases. So we're going to, when you figure out this kind of probability, there are 2 ways that GAAP kind of indicates. Either you can do a weighted average of the probabilities, or you can do the most likely. The most likely scenario is when you have probably one of these probabilities that's more than 50%. So we're going to reject that as not the best option in this case, and we're going to instead calculate the overall probability, the weighted average of these probabilities. So going over to an Excel spreadsheet, we get 5%, there's a 40% chance of that, and a 10%, and of course then there's doesn't matter on the discount, the part that's there's no discount, because it wouldn't be, you're just multiplying by 0, so you get 0. So if you look at my formula, you're taking the $2.50 discount times 0.4 and the $5 discount times 0.2, getting $1 each time, adding it up, and you get $2. So that the most likely amount that is going to be paid is 48. This is the most likely discount, okay, this average. So now we're ready to allocate the purchase price to the performance obligation, step 4. So we record the cash of $5,000. The discount for 100 of them at $2 is some type of discount liability that we're going to provide back to them when the discount is earned. And then the revenue is broken down. The rest, the $4,800, is allocated between the revenue, the mixer, and the unearned revenue, the warranty. And because we know that the mixer by itself is 40 out of the $50, that's 80%, we're going to take 80% of the revenue, or 4,800. So take out the discount first and then multiply by 80%. The rest of it is unearned revenue. And then as each month goes by on the warranty, we're going to debit unearned revenue and credit revenue as we earn that revenue over time. So the mixer is a point in time and the warranty is over time. All right, that's the way to look at problem number 1. Now, problem 2 has to do with buying another company. And we talked about in the acquisition of assets that when you buy another company, you record that at its fair value, not at the cost. All right? So, when we look at how that would look out, this is how we would record that. These are debits to these assets. When you buy the stock of a company, you buy all of its assets. You paid cash, and to make it balance, the difference is goodwill. That's how goodwill is determined, the difference between what you paid and the fair value of the assets that exist. All right? Now, fast forward in our problem, okay, to the end of 2018. So this happened in 2015. So we then go on our merry way, depreciating these assets, all that sort of thing, okay? And when we get to the end of 2018, we have depreciated those assets that are supposed to, and our cash, accounts receivable have changed, of course, and we're not going to worry about all of the things that would have changed that, okay? Liabilities are this amount. We've got the accumulated depreciation for 3.5 years. Building and equipment, as we consider impairment, we're not concerned about it, but we are about the goodwill and the patent. So looking at how this might play out, our cash was given, accounts receivable, inventory, our building with the depreciation subtracted out. So I didn't separate out accumulated depreciation, just subtracted it out. Equipment here, and we're not worried about them for impairment, okay? But here's our patent with the amortization taken out of it, and the goodwill as we originally recorded it, 14,800. Then our liabilities, $4 million. Okay, so absent any consideration for impairment, our net assets would be add all these up, subtract the liabilities. That's what net assets means. Add up the assets, subtract the liabilities. All right. Now, when we look at the patent, we see that there's concern there, as is stated by the controller, that we may not be able to utilize this technology. And so this $2 million is only going to generate $2 million in cash flow for 3 years left. So instead of lasting the normal time of a patent, that's going to be much shorter. So we're going to take the present value. We have to then consider this for impairment. And as you look at the impairment for patents, three years at $2 million, that's $6 million. That's well below what we've listed here on the balance sheet. So it is impaired. Once we know it's impaired, then we use the present value to get the fair value of this patent. There is no place that we can sell this patent. There's no market, nobody that publishes estimates of the value. So we have to do our own estimate based on future cash flows. And when we do that using this formula, we get just under $5 million. All right. So if we add up all the assets, subtract liabilities with the patent before we consider the patent, okay, scenario, then we do it again, Okay. This is actually this is all the assets minus the liabilities. This is with the ignoring goodwill for a minute and taking the patent down to the 5 million. So this is you see up here the formula. All right. So what's going to happen is our net assets, if we don't consider goodwill for a minute, is 23 million. Because that's what we're really trying to figure out, is how much the goodwill is now. Now, if we look at the three other companies, okay, and average the three companies together, we get 1.47 essentially as times their net assets. So Cow, okay, should be worth 1.47, if you will, of their net assets. So when we look at that, that means that it's worth whatever the net assets are plus 0.467. That 467 is $10 million. Right? That's what the goodwill is after, now as we consider it. If it's worth, the total is worth this 23 million, okay, then the goodwill is worth the amount over 1 times the assets. So if you think about it as 1 times the assets and then the 0.47, all right, that means that the goodwill is impaired to the tune of the difference between this number and this number. This is the new goodwill given comparison to other companies. So remember, goodwill is the difference between the value of the assets and what the company's worth. So we figured out what the company was worth based on what other companies are worth. All right. We look at the comparison between the net assets and what it's worth, okay, and find out how much the goodwill is, and then the difference between what we originally recorded as goodwill and the new value of 10.8 million. Always reduce other assets first. There's always a consideration. You have to consider all other assets. That's why we did the patent first and work the reduced value of the patent in before we consider goodwill.